I thought I had HIV. For 5 years, I thought I had HIV. In JS1, we were taught that the symptoms of HIV and AIDS were 1, frequent cold and catarrh. Check. 2, a weak immune system. I had spent a quarter of my childhood in and out of hospitals. And 3, skin infections. I had a rash that never seemed to go away. At the time, there was still a lot of stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS, so I didn't tell anybody about it. When I applied for my study visa, I didn't know you had to go through a rigorous medical exam. My dad even teased that they were going to do a pregnancy test on me, and I'm like, honestly, that was the least of my worries. The nurse took me into a room for a preliminary test. It was time to do a blood pressure test. If my heart and Lewis Hamilton were in a race, my heart would have lapped Lewis Hamilton 10 times over. She looked at the machine, looked at me, and was like, hey, relax, I'm going to do this test again. It was still high. She muttered something under her breath and said to wait for the doctor. The doctor was tall with a very kind face. She had a voice that was authoritative, but also comforting. She continued where the nurse had left off. She did the breast examination, checked my reflexes, and it was time for me to consent to additional lab testing. Do I consent to a pregnancy test? Yes. Do I consent to a test for HIV and AIDS? My shoulders dropped. I couldn't hide it any longer. And so I said, I think I have HIV. She stopped looking at the form and looked directly at me. Why do you think you have HIV? Are you sexually active? I said no. Have you had a blood transfusion? I said no. So why do you think you have HIV? In secondary school, I shared needles, sewing needles, and I also shared like sharp objects, and a couple times I got pricked, so I got hurt. And so now I think I have HIV. And she's like, I don't think you get HIV that way. I'm pretty sure you don't have HIV. Please take the test. I was still not convinced, and I'm like, how come I always have a cold then? She's like, it's probably allergies. And I'm like, okay, how do you explain this rash on my chest? My lemon and lime solution doesn't work and it keeps spreading. Apparently, people with asthma are prone to eczemas, and the rash on my chest was eczema. When my Canadian visa arrived, I literally called my best friend, who was a pre-med student at the time, and I'm like, oh my god, Femi, I don't have HIV. Like, wait, so you thought you had HIV for 5 years and you didn't say anything?